Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I wanted to go into more depth on my childhood and things I've experienced. Some of you might relate to this and some of you may not, but that's okay. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to discuss with you is when I first started to get my premonitions, my visions, insight to the future, and very detailed dreams. And some of our dreams are not just dreams, they're actually regarding our past lives, our future events, or things that our subconscious is trying to tell us. And I remember in detail, a lot of you have discussed the gifted program for schools. So back in the 90s, I was in a Christian school, and I remember my mom signing me up for this gifted program. And it started out as just going to get my ears checked. So I remember going with like 3 other of my good friends, and there was this van. It was parked kind of by a new theater that got built in our town. And I remember this woman opening the door, and she looked like a nurse, and she brought us in, and she sat all 3 of us down. And she walked us through what would happen. And when I sat down, I noticed that there was this man. He was in this suit, and he had a hat on. Kind of, you could think of like the Men in Black, or the people who see aliens and they get confronted at their door or somewhere out in the world by these men who are like, "Oh, do not say anything," or they like wipe your memory, right? That's kind of what it reminded me of. And he was sitting there, and he had like this tablet, like a tablet of paper, and a pen. And so the woman walks us through, and she says, "Okay, so I'm gonna put these headphones on you, and you're gonna hear different tones. And if you hear a specific tone, if you hear a tone, let me know by raising your hand. And if you don't hear anything, don't raise your hand." And so before she did that, she gave us, and everyone's like, "Oh, I remember a pink drink." I never received a pink drink. I received this orange drink. So she gave us these orange drinks, and I drank mine, and the headphones were on, and certain things I would hear, I would raise my hand to, and others I wouldn't, and so I would wouldn't raise my hand. And we ended up, the guy was writing down, like, I don't know what he's writing, but he was writing down each time we raised our hand. And then we ended up leaving, and I didn't think much of it. I thought, oh, it was just a hearing test, right? Just like probably a lot of you thought it was a hearing test. And then not long after that, I ended up going from a Christian school to a public school. And I remember them, a different woman pulling me out of class. And she took me into this room, and that same guy was there with the same paper tablet and a pen. And there was a desk, like a table, not a desk, but a table in the middle of the room. And there were 2 chairs opposite side of the table. And I sat down, and she walked me through on what was going to happen. I remember one of those I can't remember what they're called, like yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but it's those things that you see in like not doctors, but psychiatrist office, or therapist or whatever, they put you into a trance and it like ticks. And so she told me to look at this, and she was going to ask me some questions and I would answer. So I remember doing that almost like I was in a trance. And then she had me, there were these cards with like different different symbols and pictures on them, and she told me that she wanted me to guess on what was on the cards, but they were flipped upside down. So I remember doing that. And then there was like these little weird different shaped pieces of, like a puzzle that I had to put together. And there was like a kind of like a ball of string, and I had to undo those. I had to undo the different colors, and I was timed on that. And then there was these different papers that I'd have to do, and I'd have to fill out or solve. And then she sent me back to class. But the guy, I saw him, he was writing down each time I would do, each time I was doing stuff, these different tests, I guess you could say. And I went back to class, and then like a couple weeks later, she pulls me and a couple of my other friends out of class. And I come into this room, we walk down this corridor, and we go into this room, there's no windows. Same woman, same man, and he still has this piece of paper and pen, and there's these what looks like medical benches, and she has us, she puts us into each one of these, and she says that she's gonna put earphones on us, and she wants us to listen to, the sounds that come out, and to relax, because it's going to be almost an hour long. And I remember her injecting each of us with something. It was in a needle, and she injected us. It was really, I didn't understand like why. I wasn't at a doctor's office, but she injected something into us. And she put the headphones on. She said to just relax and listen, and if we see or hear something, to raise our hand. And I remember hearing and feeling and having visions, but I never rose my hand. And I didn't know why, but the sounds that we were listening to were the Gateway tapes. The Monroe Institute Gateway tapes. And after we were done, she, let us go back to our class and everything, and then I remember, and I thought it was like a dream, but it wasn't. And I remember now, because I think they kind of brainwashed us, or not brainwashed us, but maybe gave us something to where we would forget. And a couple of my friends and I, we were taken on this field trip. At least I thought it was a field trip. It wasn't, but I thought it was at the time. And we were taken to what looked like this military base, because I remember like Humvees and other people in uniform there, and we were walking around these buildings, and I remember we were taken to this room, and the room was really bright, and it had there were like tables, and I remember sitting at the table, but I don't remember what happened. And then I remember each of us being brought into a room separately, And we were told to use our abilities. And I didn't know what they meant by abilities, right? And this may sound freaking crazy to a lot of you, but I remember this woman in there, and she looked like she was a doctor. And they brought me in there, and there was this other girl that was brought in there. And she and I were told by the woman, each of you need to stand facing the opposite walls. And there's going to be these images that are going to come up. And you need to tell us what is on the opposite side of that image. So, like, there's a picture in front of you, but on the reverse side, there's something else. And if we, when we do it, we have to say it not with our mouth, but you know, empathically. And she said, when you do it, you don't just say it empathically, but I want you to flip the image around with your mind. And I thought this was really crazy. Like, why would she want us to do this? And I don't even know how. And so I was doing my best, and I remember telling this woman what was on the opposite side of these images. And a couple of them I didn't get right, but a couple of them I did, like a few of them I did. And I somehow flipped it around with my mind. And so she was writing it down. And the other girl, I remember, was having issues. And so she ended up leaving the room, and she came back with this. It wasn't a human. He looked like an Anunnaki, I guess I could say, the best way I could explain it. He looked like he wasn't of this world. He looked alien-like, like an Anunnaki, because the facial features, everything about him was like, it would draw you in. It was like so perfect. And he had like this white hair, almost like silver. He was very, very tall. I'd say about 7, almost 8 feet tall. And he was on the slender side, and he was wearing white with a little bit of silver in his clothing. And they were talking to each other, and then he said he said that he was going to take, he phrased it different, but that he was going to take the other girl away, and that I was okay, that I could go back to the group. And I didn't understand, like, what was going on until I could hear, I could hear the girl's thoughts. And not just the girl's thoughts, but I could hear his thoughts. And he said that, how did he phrase it? He phrased it different, but pretty much that her memory wasn't just going to be wiped, but she was going to be killed. She was going to be put down. And that scared the crap out of me. Like, I was afraid for my life at that moment. And so not long after that, I just, I didn't remember anything up until, before I get into that part. And then, maybe a month after that, I kept telling my mom, look, I'm hearing this. I'm hearing these sounds in my ears. Everything is really loud. I hear these tones in my ears, and it's hurting my ears. And my mom let the school know, the program know, and they called me back to go to that same van in the same area. And as I was getting ready to go in, Um, and it was the same process, you know, the drink and all that other stuff. Um, Something, and I think it was like my spirit guides or guardian angel telling me, literally, I heard this in my head saying, do not answer if you hear a tone, do not raise your hand if you hear a tone, and do not take that drink. So I you know, did the tones, and I didn't answer, I didn't raise my hand, and they wanted to give me the drink and I refused. And I, not long after that, I started having like these really weird dreams, and I thought that they were just dreams, but I've come to find out like they were actually happening. They were like spilling out into my reality, which may sound strange, and I'll tell you what those are. But so some of the dreams I had was one of like I was a vampire killer, and I remember I was with this group of people, and I was killing vampires, and one of the vampires, he was like the leader of the vampires, and he said that he was going to take over, he was slowly going to take over humanity, and he was going to make them, you know, make it to where his what's it called, like his clan, his people could feed and then turn some. And I remember in detail, and I swore I've seen this bridge before, but it was like a bridge that was destroyed, and I had crossed this bridge with a couple of the people that I was with to kill these creatures. And we went into this cave, and I remember this cave like I've seen it in person. Like I'd been there before. So it wasn't just a dream, like some part of me has been there before. And we went in, and there were these little, inside the cave, the further you got in, there were these sections in the rock where some of the vampires were living. It was like their little home, as you know our homes are. It's like how theirs was. And I kept walking further down, and then one of them was one of them was trying to kill me, and then a group of them just started swarming. And all of a sudden I see this, you know, the leader, he was the king, and he got him to stop, and then he looked at me and he said, you finally come back to your home. And I was so freaking confused, like, and I told him, this is not my home. I do not live here, and I've come, you know, to take care of you all. And he said, no, you're my queen, and I've been waiting for you for years. And it freaked me the hell out. And this vampire, he didn't just look like a regular vampire, like, you know, from the Vampire Diaries or Twilight, or he looked like a Nosferatu, kind of, but still a little bit human. And he started singing, and when he was singing, this whole, like, things around me started to vibrate, and you could hear the music and the sounds, just like the vibration. And he told me, I want you to get up, and I want you to go push play and record on your cassette. And keep in mind, back in the 90s, I had one of those old style like gray tape recorders that also had the record player on it, and I had like huge speakers, so it was like old style, right? And I remember in my dream getting up and flipping the tape over and pushing record and play, and I woke up the next morning and I'm like, it was just a dream, right? And so I looked, and the play and record were pushed down, and I hadn't done that like the night before. So I rewound it and I played it. His voice and the sound, you know, the music, and it was really eerie, was on there. And it was something along the lines of what he was saying was that he was drawing drawing in humans and almost like a welcoming, voice, and that he was going to end us all. And I ended up talking to my Teresa, the one that I mentioned in the last video that had to do with my church, about it, and I played it for her, and she said this is something from a past life, and you're not just, it's not just a dream, it is actually you remembering who you were before now. And she said that that I need to destroy the tape because it is evil, and if I let it play or continue, that it will come into this reality, and it's welcoming them in. And so I destroyed it. And then I remember a little bit after that, I was having nightmares, and my mom, supposedly when I was dreaming about this, I came to my mom and I told her, he's stealing my stuff, like he's taking all my stuff in my room. And she's like, you're just having a nightmare, you're okay, just tell him, drop my stuff and leave me alone, I'm trying to sleep. And so I went back into my room and I told this creature, drop my stuff, leave me alone, I'm trying to sleep and you're not welcome here. And it dropped everything, and it jumped through my mirror. And keep in mind, it came out of my mirror. And they say their mirrors are gateways, right? They're portals for other entities, for you to commune with. Just like back in the old days, they would do rituals. They would do seances and stuff with black balls or mirrors and stuff. It's a gateway. They're conversing with the anything from the other side. And this thing kind of looked like Smeagol, like a combination of Smeagol and Dobby. It was fucking creepy. And I woke up the next morning. I thought it was a dream. It actually happened. My whole dresser was a mess, and everything that it had in its hands was spread out on my dresser. It freaked me the hell out. So that was another one. And then another one that I had was I was back in the Christian school, but it was like nighttime. And this Christian school, I've been sensitive to things around me, like ethereal, spiritual stuff. And so when I was in real life in this this Christian school, there were spirits there. And it wasn't just a Christian school, it was also a church. And it was built, years prior. But I remember seeing stuff there. So back to my dream, I remember being there when it was nighttime. And I was making my way through the halls, and these hallways were super long. If you could think of the Stephen King movie, a couple of his movies where the halls just extend and they're super long, right? That's kind of what this building was like. And I remember this entity, it was a demon, coming after me, and I was running for my life, and I finally ran into the church part of this building, and I was trying to get out and I couldn't, and it was trying to kill me. And so I remember this angel, it looked like an angel, guiding me, like, it shot out this huge light towards the demon and guided me out of the building. And when I got out of the building, the whole thing set on fire. And I was so scared. And I wasn't just so scared, but it was real to me. It was I knew I was being attacked. And I woke up and there was this evil thing standing in my room looking at me. And so I just prayed to Source, and it went away. And then not long after that, it was probably a couple of years later. I remember my mom, she was leaving, she was going to stay the night at her boyfriend's house. I was probably like 16, and I was getting in the shower, and my mom had just left, and we've had these bells on our front door. So when you open the door or close it, you'd hear like a ringing, like of a bell. And I heard, when I was in the shower, the front, the door open, and I heard the bells. And I asked my mom, I said, "Mama, is that you? Did you forget something?" And I didn't hear anything. And then my bathroom door opened and closed. And this thing walked past the shower curtain. And it was in the shape of the Grim Reaper. And it even had the scythe and everything. And I got freaking scared. And it walked back through, opened the bathroom door, and left. And so this was just like the start of everything that I started to experience, in my childhood. I knew, like, I hadn't had any of this stuff happen until the Gateway tapes, those Monroe tapes, and the Gifted program. I knew, like, something, they had awoken something in my subconscious that was, dormant for a while. And it just continued over the years, from my childhood all the way up even until now. And I'll go into a later video of what I experienced, what I have experienced in the past, and then recently with all of that. But when it came to the Gateway tapes, last year I listened to them again. I listened to about 3 of them, and that's when I got all the memories back from, like, the testing with my ears, and then that room with what looked like medical, the tables that you lay on in a doctor's office. and also at that that facility for the what looked like a military facility in the Anunnaki. So I don't know if any of you have experienced any of this in your life, but I know like the government was hiding all of this, a lot of this from us, and some of us are not ready to remember, because if we're told or we're pushed into remembering, or we do it when our minds are not open enough, we will end up, you know, we'll pretty much just like be scared, and some of us will even go crazy. And that's why a lot of people end up in psychiatric hospitals, because we were put through this, or we've seen things and we don't know how to process it. And that's why some people go into like drugs or alcohol and other things that are not good, because it's a form of coping. But in my childhood, I experienced this, and a lot of parents don't realize that, yeah, while that did happen back in like the 80s and 90s, it is still going on to this day, and they just named it something different. And it also has to do with the Stargate program, the GATE program, and then also the gifted programs. These are all the same. And I know that some of these kids, if they were more vocal, like if I was to have been vocal, they would have been taken in and used to do remote viewing, remote programming, all this other stuff, like the government has done. And I'm thankful that I was able to grow up being a child and not have to go into anything like that, because it is traumatic for a lot of these adults that have been put into those programs by the government. And there are a lot of things that I have been able to, if I just focus on it, to be able to remote viewing. I have been able to do some of that, and some of those things that I have experienced with that, I've seen what different agencies have been doing, and I'm not going to go into detail about that, because that is something that I don't need to be targeted for. So, but it is a technique that you would have to work on your own to be able to do that. But yeah, in my childhood, because of that program, I have been able to have premonitions more, to have visions, to have detailed past memories. I remember a lot of my reincarnation, and I'll get into that in a couple of other videos, because that's like a lot of details that I would have to go into. But yeah, I know this is a lot to take in, and I know a lot of you and other YouTubers and people on social media have gone into depth about, and this is just my experience. So anyway, that's what I wanted to discuss today, and how it's kind of affected me. The way I have coped with it is by meditating, grounding. I go outside and I have my back against a tree, and I will have my shoes off or sandals off, and I will just have my feet on the ground, or I'll just lay in the grass and ground myself, reconnect with life energy, because life energy is all around us. I will do that. Sometimes I will journal, or I'll make videos like this for everyone else to see, or even just a private session for myself videos. But don't, my advice to you guys is do not be afraid of this gift, these gifts that have been given to you. Do not try to push it away, and realize that what you are going through, what you are seeing from your visions, your premonitions, your dreams, or just ethereal, spiritual entities, you're not just seeing things. You, more than half the time, I guarantee that you are actually the things that you're seeing are trying to communicate with you, trying to help you, trying to guide you through this life, through your past lives and everything, and trying to help you remember and awaken to your contracts, because we all have contracts before we come here on Earth. And it's not just on Earth, like we choose before we even come down to whatever planet or place, we choose what we want to do, what we want to remember in our contracts. We choose where we want to go. And some of these beings that you guys have seen, that I even maybe you haven't, or you've heard about, they're not just angels, they're aliens, they're you know, something entity wise. They are source, they are us. In before we even come down here, we choose what we want to be. And sometimes we have soul contracts with other people on this earth, and we discuss, you know, before we come here, what we want to work on, what we want to remember, what lessons that, you know, we need, or that we should work on, so our souls can actually heal. And when you have that contract with that person, or even yourself, they're here. So different souls and bodies, you know, humans are here to mirror you and help you remember why you came here in the first place, and to help you wake up. I know a lot of people don't like the word waking up, but you know, just to remember. And we will continue to reincarnate if we do not, if we have not learned those lessons, if we have not following I'm trying to think of the word, if we have not followed through with those contracts, with the contract that we originally agreed upon. So anyway, I'm going to end the video here, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. If you have any questions,